Hello friends, here I am with next part of this story, so I hope you all friends will like the video and subscribe to my channel. So let's start the video with summary. Naruto Uzumaki, little friend, powerful genin, and powerful half-god. How will Naruto handle being forced from his ninja life into the world where god and goddesses roam? Pairing Naruto x Artemis only. Russellville, Arkansas Hut? Naruto said as he looked at his map and pointed at his own dot. And when he had traveled to a southern area he had expected for the weather to be drier. He expected it mostly because it was in the middle of summer, and the city before this one was undergoing a heat wave. The moisture he could feel in the air right now was so thick that water was forming on everything, and it was really annoying him. I hate what this is doing to my hair, Disma commented dryly as she tried to flatten her frizzy hair. And she was annoyed by the fact that the second they had entered the city the tires of Naruto's bike had popped. I am more worried about the divine presence that is in the city here. It is much more potent than my own, but not as controlled, Naruto commented as he felt the layer of energy that seemed to surround the whole city. Unlike his own energy that had a small amount of human in it, this one was nearly all divine in nature. No, this energy also had some monster energy in it. A god or goddess? Disma asked with raised eyebrows, and Naruto narrowed his eyes for a second. The energy was very similar to a god or goddess, but it felt more primal. This power also felt younger than either Artemis or Mr. D from the camp. Maybe, but either way I believe we should check this out, Naruto said as he started to walk towards the city, and the second they entered the city boundaries they were both hit with a wave of nausea. Disma actually had to run over to the side of the lake they were near and throw up, and Naruto knelt down to her side and gave her a few pats on the back. When she was done she had decided that she would comment. I don't think whatever that divine presence is wants us here, Disma said with a light grin, yet her pale face said differently. Naruto's eyes widened when he felt a presence appear, and he turned around to see a white mist start to form and take the general shape of a young male. No features were shown, and when the figure spoke Naruto's eyes widened at the layer's voice, demigod of Apollo, and male goddess. If you enter my domain I do not promise you will leave, the figure said before it started to vanish, as the mist it was made out of started to dissipate into the wind. Not creepy at all. And I wish they didn't call me that. I hate the male goddess nickname, Naruto commented, before he felt the same energy from earlier start to move underground. He grabbed Disma and jumped out of the way. His hands made of bones came out of the ground and made a grab at them. Naruto summoned the fireball in his hand, and threw it at the hand sticking from the ground. The second the fire hit the ground it expanded and made a small crater about 7 feet long, and 4 feet deep. He sighed in relief when the hand stopped coming from the ground. Maybe we should leave, Disma said with a small amount of fear in her voice. Though that could be because necromancy was a skill that only people connected to a god or goddess of the dead were able to use, and this person also used the mist to fit his needs. No, I think that we should see what this guy is like, Naruto said with a light frown on his face. When he had saw the white mist he had gotten a better read on the energy that this guy had, and it wasn't evil in nature, just powerful, and more primal. Not only that, but it felt kind of lonely. No, I am out of here this time, Disma said as she turned to leave the city, only to see that when she tried to leave she would be surrounded by mist. She ran through the mist for a few minutes, before when she left the mist she saw that she was right where she started. Looks like we can't leave anyway, Naruto commented with a frown as he watched her try again a few more times, and each time she ended up right where she started. She ended up giving up on escaping, and started to walk next to Naruto. Okay, so we find this guy and ask him to let us leave, Disma said with a stubborn look on her face, and Naruto rolled his eyes. He didn't want to fight this guy either, but maybe talking to this person will get them to let them leave. I was worth a shot, and what was the worst that this person could do to them? Yeah, but the problem is where would we find him? Naruto asked out loud, before the two of them heard a rumbling noise. She thought about it for a second, and tried to put any clues together. This person uses dead bodies as a weapon, so maybe a graveyard? No, it didn't even matter because pretty much the whole city was a graveyard at this point. I have no clue, but let's check the middle of what is left of the city first, Disma said, and for the first time Naruto actually looked towards the city and gasped at what he saw. The building of the city were destroyed, and trees grew out of the rubble of what was left of the city. Animals could be seen running around, And that wasn't all. Tending to the plants were dozens of nymphs, each of them ignoring everything around them, with their only concern being the trees and flowers. No dead bodies, Naruto noticed as they walked through the remains of the city, and that was strange. No dead bodies, so signs of fighting, no blood on the ground at all. It was like everyone in the city had vanished before the city was destroyed. He couldn't even smell death in the air, so nobody was dead either. That's weird. The animals. Disma shouted when she realized what had happened, and yet she was still ignored by the blank-eyed nymphs around them. What about the animals? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow, and Disma looked at him like he was an idiot for a moment. Then she remembered that Naruto didn't know very much about Greek mythology, so he wouldn't see anything familiar about this. Gods and goddesses have the power to turn humans into animals, or even objects. They can even turn girls into the nymphs around us if they want to, Disma stated, and Naruto sighed in relief. This proved that the person just wanted to be left alone, but was not very violent. The reason they weren't turned into animals or nymphs when they entered the city was because they had their parents' protection, which was why they had felt so sick when they entered the city. At least he shows some kind of care towards people's lives, Naruto commented with a slight smile, happy they weren't dealing with somebody that was truly evil. He was a person that just wanted to be left alone, and preferred nature over cities. Or maybe he liked nature over the ruins of cities? They were interrupted from their thoughts when they saw purple flames appear in front of them. Before the flames vanished and they saw two monsters appear. Two monsters that they had already defeated before now, and both monsters glared at Naruto with hatred in their eyes. The Nemean lion and the Colchic bull were back, and judging from the looks on their faces, they remembered Naruto. Shit! Naruto yelled as he grabbed Disma and jumped out of the way as the bull charged at them with death in its glare, and he cursed again when he saw the Nemean lion jump over the bull's back right at them. Naruto threw Disma to the side, before he grabbed the lion's paw and spun himself around to toss the lion at the bronze bull. Naruto grunted when he was hit in the side by the bull's mechanical tail, and sent skidding across the ground. Two more flames appeared, and Naruto saw two new figures come out of the fire before the flames vanished. The first looked like a mix between human and bull, while the second looked like a giant person with only one eye. The Minotaur, and a Cyclops. Disma yelled in true fear as she saw four dangerous monsters all start to surround Naruto, and she took her bow out and aimed an arrow at the closest target. With a twang she sent a golden arrow into the shoulder of the Cyclops, but it had very little effect on the monster. Naruto had to jump out of the way from the charging bull man, and he saw the Cyclops' fist coming at him. Creating a fireball in his hand, he threw it at the Cyclops. This caused Naruto to move away from the monster, and Naruto almost grinned, before he saw that the monster had been unaffected by his attack. It was completely unhurt. My eye! The Cyclops yelled in pain, and for a moment Naruto saw a golden arrow sticking out of its eye. Naruto ran at the monster to finish it off, before he retreated in favor of dodging the claws of the Nemean lion. Disma, look out! Naruto yelled just as Disma was smacked by one of the Cyclops' hands, and sent flying through one of the crumbling walls of a fallen building. I'm okay. My legs and ribs hurt, but I'm okay. I landed on a nymph. Disma yelled, and he saw her hiding behind the crumbling wall a few moments later. She was going to use this spot to help him out, and fire arrows from here. Good, Naruto said to himself as he jumped onto the back of the Minotaur and covered his hand in flames. Making a stabbing motion, his hand burned through the skull of the monster, and Naruto summoned his knife and jumped off the falling Minotaur to jump at the blinded Cyclops. The Cyclops smelled him coming, and leaned back so that Naruto sailed past him. Naruto was then tackled by the bull, and he moved his body enough so that the horn only gave him a slightly deep gash on his leg. In retrospect, maybe he should have made it aim for his chest, because he was wearing a vest made of the Nemean lion's fur. That would have protected him, but too bad for him, he had forgotten about that fact until now. Naruto kicked off the ground into the air, and they formed a shadow clone. Holding his hand out, Naruto and the shadow clone started to form a Rasengan in his hand. Then as the toes started to fall, the Rasengan changed shape, so that four small blades of wind came out of the sides. Futon, Rasengan! Naruto yelled as he thrust the Rasengan into the Nemean lion's neck just as it tried to take another bite out of him. The lion's head separated from its body, and its body turned into gold dust. It only left its pelt around again, signaling a second defeat at Naruto's hands. "Suck on this!" Disma shouted as she shot an arrow, and this time she aimed it right into the Cyclops' mouth and pierced it through the brain. It exploded in golden dust, leaving only the horn on top of its head behind as proof. "Good job!" Naruto yelled to her, before Naruto saw the bull rushing him again. Taking his knives, he waited for the bull's mouth to open, before he threw it down the creature's throat, and it exploded into gold dust like all the other monsters. Looking around, he looked at the transformed items on the ground, and saw the horn had turned into a keychain, the Minotaur's horn had turned into a smaller version of itself, the bull's remains because a bronze pen. The lion's pelt had turned into a golden pair of pants. Holy shit! Disma yelled as she ran up and grabbed her own item, the keychain from the Cyclops. The other three were Naruto's, and she saw him fall to his knee and grab his leg in pain. She rushed over to him and saw the cut on his leg was still bleeding, and it only healed a small amount at the moment. "Fox, give me some damn chakra!" Naruto yelled in his thought, and he sighed in relief when the fox's chakra seeped into his body and healed his leg the rest of the way. He stopped the flow of the beast's chakra, and he was glad that his eyes didn't change color with the use of the fox's chakra this time. Normally he could feel when the chakra changed his eye color, because certain colors were more pronounced than others. That was summoning magic. Disma said out loud with a frown on her face, and she was sure of one thing as she watched Naruto set back up and collect his prizes. Things had just gotten a little harder than they had thought. "We must be getting close," Naruto said to Disma, and she looked at him like he was stupid. Of course they were getting close, because on the way here they had defeated at least a dozen of the bone creatures. And they didn't even get the chance to stock up on their victory spoils either. "Less talk, more run," Disma bit back at him sarcastically as they both jumped out of the way as a giant reptile had crashed right into where they had been standing, before Naruto grabbed Disma and jumped on top of another head and used it to dodge a third head. Used a wind blade he quickly formed in his head to slice off the 3 heads, before 6 heads quickly grew back in their places. And now the total head count was 23 heads on a giant body. Disma smacked him in the back of the head roughly. "Will you forget the head slicing thing?" Disma yelled, but as Naruto cut all the heads off again. 46 heads. "I have a plan," Naruto said simply as he looked at the front legs of the creatures started to bend, and he tossed Disma safely into the trees before he cut the whole group of heads off again by jumping into the fold and swinging randomly. 92 heads. The creature's knees were starting to give out under its own weight, and it no longer had the ability to walk around without falling over. Using the creature's heads as a springboard, Naruto jumped up high into the air and created a few dozen shadow clones, before every clone formed a Rasengan in their hands and started falling from the sky. They shoved each one into the main body of the Hydra and ground most of its body to golden dust. Naruto jumped away from the destruction just as the Rasengans all blew up in a gold explosion of chakra and dust. When Disma came out of the trees, she was happy to see the Hydra killed, and Naruto building a necklace made of linked together, smaller versions of the Hydra's fangs. Naruto placed it around his neck, and they ended up giving him a more fierce look. "Every fight, I get a little stronger," Naruto thought with a light grin, and he gripped his fist tightly, before he was hit in the back of the head by Disma. Naruto blinked and looked at her to see her covered in sticks and leaves, before he grinned at how she apparently landed when he threw her. She really was not happy with him for doing that. "Okay, you have to be a complete idiot or a genius to use the weight of that monster's heads against it," Disma stated with a flat tone, and Naruto couldn't help but laugh at how she said that. Normally people would stop cutting off the heads, but Naruto just kept cutting them off until the front of its body weighed too much to hold up. Then there was the chance the heads would fight each other when they got too cramped. In the end, his true secret to defeating the Hydra was cutting its heads off and using its ability to grow heads against it. Naruto was a master of making more of himself, so he knew more than anyone that sometimes 2 heads were not better than 1. "Hey, an idiot is only an idiot until their ideas work, then they are called geniuses," Naruto corrected her in a way that he called himself a genius. He liked to brag every once and a while, and he was pretty sure that he had earned it. They had been fighting non-stop, with him doing much more work than her. Disma looked at him plainly, before she coughed into her hand. "You are arrogant, but it is in your charm, it will bite your ass." Disma said with a flat tone to her voice as she showed one of her traits as Apollo's children. She blinked when a stray thought came to her mind. If Naruto was the child of Hestia, and she was the daughter of Apollo, wouldn't that make Naruto her uncle in a way? She shivered in horror at the thought that she was related to this insane guy. She and Naruto both looked on in annoyance when even more monsters started to pop out of nowhere, some of which they had already defeated. Today, I can't be the only one pissed about this, Naruto muttered with an annoyed glare at the 20 or so monsters standing in front of them. The fucking Nemean lion was once more glaring at him as he was forcefully brought back by the person that was controlling the city. Naruto glared right back at the lion, before Disma pulled on his shirt and pointed behind them. Naruto paled when he saw 30 hellhounds behind them, and on either side of them were 10 skeletal soldiers. I think we have a problem, Disma said meekly. And for once Naruto fully agreed with her when it came to the situation. Fighting 80 or more of these types of enemies was not what he considered to be fun, but the more monsters they fought, the less energy the enemy would have when they eventually came face to face with them. Naruto forced himself to calm down, before he hooked his arm around the younger girl's waist and jumped up just in time as 2 hellhounds came crashing down at the location he had been standing at. Good news, the guy must be close, Naruto stated as he raised his hand into the air and formed a golden Rasengan with fire filling it to the brim. Naruto added more and more power to the attack, before he threw it towards the ground right where the monsters were. In an inferno of blazing flames, the monsters were completely burned to a crisp, with only the Nemean lion remaining slightly burned. The lion roared at him, before the revived creature turned away and started to run away to fight another day against the blonde that had defeated him multiple times. That was hot, Disma said with a grin on her face, before she was smacked in the back of the head by Naruto. He was not about to have lame puns being delivered by anyone but him. It was his job to make lame jokes at bad times. She glared at him while holding the back of her head with small tears in her eyes. It may have been a playful smack, but it stung like crazy. She was sure that this guy had some form of freaking super strength to be able to do something like this. He jumped like 50 feet in the air like it was no trouble after all, and she was about to lecture him before the ground opened up to reveal a hidden door. Enter. Did you hear that? Naruto asked curiously, not wanting to admit that the voice was creeping him out somewhat. The door itself looked like it was something you would see when you were about to go to the underworld, or die in some hellish way. The gate was covered in bones, and the door itself looked like it was made from heavily burned up wood, blackened by the flames of the worst hell imaginable. And the two of them looked at each other for a moment before Disma had enough. Okay, are we really dumb enough to listen to a demonic voice telling us to enter an obviously evil room? Disma asked blandly, and Naruto had to think about it for a second, and the two of them shared another look in the other's direction. They both started to pale when they realized they were idiots big enough to do what they were about to do. The second three made up their minds. The door started to open all on its own and white mist started to pour out of the room. Yes, we are dumb enough, Naruto said as the two of them started to run towards the door without even thinking of the downsides of running towards something with as much power as Naruto himself. The child of Apollo and the male goddess passed through the door without a care in the world. Only one word came to Naruto's mind as he passed into the gate: victory. I hope you all liked the video. And if you all want the next part of this video, please like the video and comment 3 hearts. Please subscribe to my channel so whenever I upload a video you will notify.